Hey, all of you. We are finally the timeline is uh, all completed, and we are here with you all with Shawn Flynn today. So it's going to be a massive session today, as many of the people actually are waiting over here for today's session. Right. So, firstly, I would like to give you a brief introduction uh, about me, Sean, and the organization, what we are doing actually. Right. So, hi, all of you. Thanks for joining us today. It's great to see all of you here. Today, we are having Mr. Shawn Flynn with us. He's a head of incubation at Tech Code Acceleration and Silicon Valley, USA. He's a founder and host of the Silicon Valley Successes podcast, and he's a best-selling author. Right. So, it's all about Sean. And myself, Yash, I'm a team manager at Zubi.io. And at Zubi, we are building one of its kind of inclusive ecosystem for where millennials come, learn, and assess themselves into the emerging technologies, mainly into the blockchain, AI, ML, cybersecurity, and a lot more. So we are doing a lot of things inside of one organization. We are doing lot of stuff, and every day we do new out of the box things every day. So it's a little introduction about Zubi, and to know more about Zubi, you guys can go to www.zubi.io. Right. So now I would like to hand over it to Mr. Sean, so he can take today's session forward. Hi, Sean. Now it's stage is yours. Audience
Yash,
is yours. Now it's all up to you. Thanks
all
for
right.
joining.
Yash, thank you for the introduction. If anyone has any questions or more questions, please write in the chat. Yash can message me. But actually, I'm really honored to be here today. So a little bit more about myself. I'm the host and founder of a podcast, the Silicon Valley Podcast. So far, I've interviewed some big names here in Silicon Valley, including the co-founder of Square, Jim McKelvey, the co-founder and CEO of Canva, Melanie Perkins, the founder of Rotten Tomatoes, Patrick Lee, the founder of um, Juniper Network, Scott Kearns. So I've gotten to sit down and talk with some of the biggest investors, biggest leaders in tech, including the inventor of 3G technology, some of the biggest entrepreneurs. And the reason I was able to sit down with all these people is my background. I'm the head of incubation for TechCode, which we have 15 incubators around the world, 25 offices focused on artificial intelligence and blockchain, helping companies go into new markets. Before that, I was the investment director for Bay Angels, one of the oldest angel groups here in Silicon Valley. They invested in OpenTable, and their portfolio is pretty impressive. And I mean, just my whole life is involved with startups, basically helping them get to the next stage, helping them grow. So I sit down with them, find out what areas they need to work on, or where they need help to get to the next level, get to the next round, whether it's their seed round, their A round, or maybe their B round. And then I make introductions to service providers, partners, investors, or someone that can help them out. So because of that, I was able to um, have access to a lot of amazing people in Silicon Valley, and I decided, these conversations I'm having, this knowledge that people are sharing, it'd be great to put it in a package that anyone can listen to anywhere in the world. So luckily, I was connected through Yash online. He listened to the podcast. Said, let's do this event together. And I thought, oh my God, this is a great opportunity to share and communicate with an audience. So first, please subscribe to the podcast, the Silicon Valley Podcast, to get weekly information. But with that, let's go into today's kind of discussion. And please ask as many questions as possible. Yash, please, ask me as many questions as you'd like. But let's just go into talking about um, startups, the um, the entrepreneur ecosystem, analyzing and validating your idea. And please also let me know if the volume is okay. If it's a little quiet, I can either change my headset. I do have another headset, uh, or I'm not sure if there is a way to I'm not sure if that helps. Please let me know, Yash, if that's okay. Is that better? Yes? Okay. I'm gonna assume right now that that's actually a lot better, the sound or the sound volume. But once again, if it does sound a little low, please let me know, and I will either change headsets or we'll figure it out. So first thing, let's talk about the first question that Yash had asked me to talk about was making the leap into entrepreneurship and exactly kind of what that means. So entrepreneurship, I think a lot of people have different definitions of what that is. So let's talk about that first. For example, when I interviewed Jim McKelvey, the co-founder of Square, I mean, the person's worth what, 1.8 billion US dollars, 2 billion almost. I mean, it's amazing. He has a strict definition, and it is doing something that no one else has done before. And that's very interesting and different at the same time, because if you do something that someone else has never done before, I mean, who's going to be your mentor, who's going to be your advisor, who's going to help you and guide you in that direction? And then there's other definitions of entrepreneurship, which is just starting your own business, starting something that you know new for yourself. So really dependent on what your definition of entrepreneurship is. So let's say that. And remember, at any time, please ask me questions. I have the live comments on. Please change your mic. It's not clear. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, I still. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so the voice is good now. Yes? I got VJ saying yes. I got Paul saying it's good. All right, so let's continue. So and once again, please ask me questions. So making the leap into entrepreneurism. So first you have to ask yourself, why you want to start something new, why you want to go in that direction, and kind of what resources you already have. Uh, and resources could be your network, your connections, your knowledge, your amount of money you have saved. Um, there's a lot of things to look at. Thank you guys for all right. So a lot of things to look at of why you want to start your own business, why you want to start your own idea and create it into something. So if you have a good network, that's a great start, and that's something you can build pretty quickly. And also, whatever I say right now, localize it to where you are. So I'm going to speak just for Silicon Valley. Where you're living right now, I mean, everything is different. So you will have to adjust it. And if I say a dollar amount or anything like that, I'm always talking US dollars, not the local currency, and ways of doing businesses. So let's continue with that. So starting a business, jumping into entrepreneurism, a lot of people have this beautiful idea that you come up with an idea, you build a product, and you're rich. Where in reality, it's a lot of pain
It's a lot of loneliness. It's a lot of frustration. Something very common with founders is them saying, in the process of building their company, how many friends they lost because they didn't have time for them, how they didn't have a balance, where their health suffered because they were so focused, so stressed almost on what they wanted to create because of that drive. That to go into it, I would definitely recommend, either one, working at another startup for a little while, two, talking to other entrepreneurs that have started their own business and getting their opinion, and creating that wheel where it's, you will allocate time purposely to friends, family, spiritual exercise. So you do have that balance. So you don't sacrifice everything in your dream. So with that, you know, you have the balance, you have the vision. Now you have your goals to set out what you actually want to accomplish in the next 1 year, then backtrack it to 6 months and backtrack it to 3 months and backtrack it. So you have little goals and a process that you're going to attempt to do. So maybe it is, okay, first, 1 to 3 months, I'm going to validate my idea. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to see if the market even likes what I want to provide, what I want to produce. Testing the market. And this could be done in many ways. It could be taking surveys. It could be building a MVP, minimal viable product. Just almost the wireframe for it if it's a digital product, or if it's a physical, just even a cardboard sample or something where people are giving you feedback and telling you if they'll actually want to buy it. It could be many different ways to see if you should move forward with it. So maybe that's your first 1 or 3 months. Then after that, or in this process also, you're building your team, you're building your network. And how important is the team? Well, one person can't do everything. I mean, even everyone hears of Steve Jobs, but you don't really hear of how important Steve Wozniak was. And if those two weren't combined, most people think that nothing would have happened. I mean, everyone, Bill Gates, all these amazing founders that people talk about, they all had someone, a partner. They had a team behind them, working with them, creating this idea. And you're going to have to, do the same thing. You might be the CEO, you might have all the shares, but you need that support system. You need that person to go out and help sell the product or design it or market it, or, your team. And how important is the team at the very beginning? Depending on if you want investment or not. A lot of investors, and I mean, this just isn't my opinion. I mean, this is people like Bill Reckner, the managing partner of Broad Ventures, who I interviewed, Connor Riley, the managing partner at Global Capital. I mean, for early stage companies, when they don't have revenue, the investors look at the team so much, and they look at the team going, okay, what's their background? Do they have any exits? Have they created companies in the past, 2 or 3 companies and sold those? Or were their companies in the past complete failures? What was it like? What was their education? Or do they have PhDs or masters? Or are they experts in this technology that they're building? What's their network? Does this one guy come from a family or have all these relations with potential companies that might acquire this company or might invest later on in this company? For example, there was a startup that I worked with who had a very, very rich uncle who was able to invest later on, but you had to get the company from the beginning to this later stage. And at that later stage, the uncle's investment firm could write a check. So it's just getting it to that stage, which would allow the investment to take place. So there's all these things that people are looking at on your team. One will face during the initial trades. So I got a question for VJ. What is the difficulty that one will face in the initial stages of a startup? Well, I mean, right there, think about it. When you're building your team, maybe you have no money to pay people. maybe you're just selling them the dream. Um, at the beginning, there's so much stuff that people don't know, mostly because either lack of experience or it's something new. So, for example, with the team, maybe you have to sit down with everyone and go, listen, I can't pay you a normal salary right now. I have to give you equity, or let's negotiate your salary. We can pay you this much after we go to market and sell the product. Or, how can we make it so you will work with this team because we think we need you. We know how much we'll benefit from you. So, that's building the team. Where your first orders coming from? That's a very difficult thing at the beginning. That first few customers that prove that the market wants and desires what you're building. Um, so another question. Okay, so I'm switching from live chats to private chat. And then Yash, could you just send me the questions in private chat so I don't get distracted by the live comments? So back to the initial phases, leaping into entrepreneurism. So building your team, building your connections, testing out your product, seeing if the market wants it. That's one thing a lot of people, especially engineers, they get focused on the product. They want to build the perfect product. And then once it's done and they feel it's perfect, they go to the market and they realize that no one wants it. They wanted it. They thought it was amazing, but the market won't pay for it. They won't buy it. They didn't have that customer saying, when it's done, here's an order sheet. I want to order this quantity. Or that pipeline of sales where it's, 10 companies lined up saying, we want this thing. Or the trials. A great example of a company that, is doing it right. I got a call from a buddy about 2 months ago during COVID, during the lockdown. And I asked him, I was like, how are you doing? I haven't talked to you in a long time. He said, oh, I started a new company. Me and my buddy, we had this idea for an app. So we first, called our relatives and some friends and asked them if they would use this app. And they gave us feedback and saying, oh yeah, we like the idea. So him and his business partner, they built, an MVP, minimal viable product, the most simple thing possible. It didn't really work well, it was more just the wireframes and that. And then they sent it out to those relatives and more. And they got feedback from them. Then they, added a few more features based on their feedback. Then they have a meetup group that they're part of. They asked the meetup group, just think of a group of people getting together on a topic. I think their group was a Christian group that they were part of, and asked them, less than 200 members, could everyone here please test out our product, our app, and give us feedback on it? And they did. They're taking that feedback now, changing it, adjusting it. Now they're going to go to the other Christian groups that are partners with this one and have them test out the app. So they said they should get about 800 people testing this app. Once they get feedback from all 800, then they're going to start going to investors and say, listen, we've already tested the market. This is the feedback we've gotten. These are the changes we've made. These are the people that have said that they will purchase this app and the service on a monthly basis based on, when it goes live. This is the amount of money we need to actually take this to market. And as you can see through our trial on that, we're forecasting that we will get, forever this amount of money that we spend on ads, and that we'll get this much in revenue. As you can see, our cost per acquiring a customer is higher than our spend to get it. Off day one will be profit. They will have all those numbers to go to investors. They will have all those numbers to validate their idea. And if people don't like their idea in the next testing round, they'll find out and they'll go, okay, either we have to change this completely, we have to change these things, or the market just doesn't like this idea that we liked. But they're doing it the right way. They're going out testing. Him and his partner have worked together in the past on companies, and they've done successful. They have a network. Um, they have other people they know who they want to bring onto the company once it gets to that next stage. So they've already thought out their next 6 months, their next year of how to grow this company if they move forward, if the market likes what they're doing. They understand from their past how to network with investors, how to pitch, how to get attention. They, I mean, those initial things at the beginning that a lot of people find difficult, they already have that roadmap through experience. So, a lot back to the whole leap in, because I want to go into more detail. Some people just quit everything and do their idea. Other people do it part-time, nights and weekends. That's more or less how a lot of people recommend it, especially because you don't know how long it will take to build your product. You don't know how long it will take to get that first customer. And, you have to survive. There's ways to fund that, such as joining an accelerator program that you get funding for. I'm not sure in India what the average check size is and how much equity they take, but say here in Silicon Valley, maybe you get anywhere from 25,000 to 150,000 for 0.5 to 7% of the equity in your company, depending on the accelerator program. But that's a nice way to get initial funding for the product, access to mentors and advisors, introduction to potential team members, to move things along and do those first steps. And they coach you step by step how to do it. So that's a way to start. There's many ways to go about it. You have to kind of know who you are and how it works for your situation. Yes, some people are able to just have some money. They can work at home and say, listen, I'm going to give this 6 months. Other people, they don't have that option, and they go, listen, I don't have the savings. I have to do this nights and weekends. But once I get to this point where I have 2 customers, then I will focus 100% on this endeavor, this business, and move forward there. All right, so stages of launching a startup. And here, I'll switch back to the comments real quick. Okay, so we got some questions about COVID investment and selling equity. So, and then I'll go back to the launching a startup. Quickly on that one, COVID, the investment ecosystem for that, it's actually pretty interested. I had a good talk with an investor the other day about it. She invests in agriculture technology and just kind of what she was seeing. And she actually gave a talk on a webinar where they took a survey of the investors, and there's over 200 investors in this webinar, and 68% of them, which I couldn't believe this number, said that they were excited because they knew they were going to be able to invest in opportunities moving forward. So they had already had all this capital, all this money that they're already supposed to deploy in 2020, and they're just hold on to it because they think that they're going to be able to get a better deal in the future than they are now. So they're all excited. When it comes to angel investors and that, I'm seeing kind of the same thing. They're holding on to their money going, okay, I know I can get a better investment in the future, because they know, as bad as it sounds, a lot of companies are struggling. They know that their valuations are going down. They know that they're going to go to them and go, listen, I need that money. I'm willing to give up more of my company for it. So, from what we've seen here in the Valley over the years, since 2008, 2009, continually these valuations are going up and up and up. And this is kind of like a correction. Where that company that has nothing, it's going to be harder to raise capital. But, in bad times, there's opportunities. A lot of great companies in the past were developed during difficult times, and that's probably still going to be the same now. There's a lot of people that are excited. I moderated a panel this last week for Invest in Hong Kong, which was on the opportunities between Silicon Valley and Hong Kong for fintech. One of the investors on the panel, Edith, had said that they just invested a large sum in a fintech company, and they're all excited now because they see how many opportunities there are moving forward, because all these companies are going to update their legacy systems. All these banks that have used the same software for 40 years have now decided, because of what's happening, we have to update our process, what we do, what we use. I got to interview Jitendra, who's the head analyst at Bloomberg Capital. He discussed, and that podcast is not live, just for the record. If people want to go to the podcast and listen to that one, it's not going to come out for a little while. But he basically said the next 5-10 years of tech, we have now put that in 2-3 months for adoption. All these companies, they're updating, they're interested. Conversations that they were postponing for years, they're now saying we have to have them. Robotic process automation. I had a conversation the other day with one person saying we are getting a lot of interest because of what's happening to these workforces. They know that they have to process some of this stuff that used to be done manually. They have to be more efficient with the paperwork, with the store of records, with processing things. They have to telehealth. Online education. There's sectors. There's a lot of things right now that are getting so much attention, so much interest. So that's COVID. Yes, there are investors worried. There's others that are thinking this is going to be a great opportunity. There are startups that are struggling. There's other startups that are focused on things that are getting a lot of attention. So with everything, opportunities are moving from one area to another. And that's part of being an entrepreneur. You have to see what's in the future, what's moving forward, take advantage, see the opportunity. And there's also so much government funding right now. Once again, I can't say about India, but I know US, a lot of countries, there's so much government funding going into different projects, whether it's technology for local governments, whether it's technology for COVID, that there's opportunities everywhere if you have that mindset. But at the same time, I have lost friends here from Silicon Valley. What I mean by lost, I don't mean passed away. I mean they've moved. I just had one close friend who I've known for years. He messaged me saying, I've moved to Florida. That's literally their side of the U.S. He just got up and left because he was offered a job there for a company, and the company he was at here just closed down. I have another company I've known for 4.5 years that I saw them from their seed round to raise $4.5 million. They were at a $40 million valuation. They were planning to raise their next round. They've just officially closed their doors in the last 3 months. Their product, everything just isn't for this market. They aren't able to raise the funding they need. The investors got scared. They didn't want to put in more capital, and it's a shame because the great team, great company. It's just because of what's happening, they don't fit in this. Maybe a year from now, they come back with a clean cap table, do the company again, and take off. And I'll transition this into the other question I saw was selling equity smart. If you can have 100% ownership of your company, many people say that's the best thing. I just had a conversation with this one woman who, had a company for 3 years, owned 100% of the equity. How she did that is she had customers from day one. She had a book of business, which she had from a previous company. This was a tech company for medtech. They had done this one product for the company. The company decided to close that division. They said, okay, we're not in this sector. We're not doing this. Let's just shut this project down. She thought this project had an opportunity to be huge. She was later left the company. She knew everyone. She said, listen, I want to develop this idea. She was given permission. She did everything legal, everything, paperwork, everything, saying she could do this. Then she went out to her network, which is in that area, which would use this product, got the first paying customer. That paying customer, that money was used to develop the product. Then she got more customers, which, developed the product and now have a first hire. Once again, kept growing, more customer. The more she was able to build her team. She did everything cheap. Everyone was working out of her house, she said, for the first 2.5 years. They only actually got an office when they were in the process of getting acquired, because she wanted to seem professional. But, people worked out of her house. She saved every penny possible. Very, very efficient. More money comes in, company grows more. So it is a slower pace. But at the very end, she had 100% of the company. She dictated everything. Once you start selling equity, now you have a boss. You have people you have to listen to. And a lot of people get into, they think entrepreneurism, I start my own company, I'm in charge. But when there's other people's money involved, when there's investors, you're not alone anymore. You have to listen to other people. For your team, though, maybe you have to give up equity to encourage people to join your team. With that, 0.5% to 5%, 10%. How valuable is this other team person to the team? And over what span of time is that equity going to vest? For example, say you get a chief marketing officer. They want, in negotiation, it comes to 5% equity in the company for them to join. They're not going to take a salary for 6 months. After 6 months, then they're going to take a very, very reduced salary for the market until you've done your A round or your seed round, at which point they'll get a bump up in pay. But that equity, that 5%, you're not going to give them everything on day one, because what happens if on day 2 they decide to quit and leave? It just doesn't make sense. So, it should vest over time, maybe 6 months for the first percentage, and then another 6 months for the second percentage, and every month for the next, 2 years, a small chunk. Yash, if you have any questions or actually want to keep me on track, because I do know I like to go on stories and tangents, please stop me. Please let me know. And let's see, I'll look at the questions right now. What does co-founder should be given in terms of equity? Once again, how valuable is this co-founder? Let me go back. I've seen co-founders where it was anywhere from, you get 51%, I get 49%. Someone has to have the majority of shares to be a decision maker. If it's 50-50, nothing gets accomplished. Also, going back to vest in shares, if you start a company with someone and you give them, say, 49%, you have 51%, and then 6 months later you guys get a couple of arguments, you decide to split up, your company's gone. There's got to be things vested over time for both founders. There has to be ways for the co-founder shares to be bought back from them. There's got to be a lot of systems in place so that the company can live on, so that investors don't get scared. And then the way that the shares are allocated, you normally set around 20 or 30% for future employees. You have this amount for sales, this marketing, all these things, and it's too complicated for just this webinar. It's too complicated. But I can say this. Going back to, if you can hold on to 100% of the company, if you are bringing in a part, and maybe the 100% is between you and your co-founder without investors, or maybe it's just you, but be smart with the equity. Decide, okay, if I'm doing this accelerator, I have to give up this much equity for the money in the accelerator, the network, and that, is it worth it? Let's talk to these people that have gone through this program. Okay, this angel investor, our company is valued at this today. It's valued at $1 million. So he's giving me 50,000. So I'm giving up, 5% of my company for his money. Can I just, both sides, can I justify this valuation of $1 million? Can I justify the value of this 50,000 to give up this percentage of equity in the company? And also, hold on to as much equity as possible for as long as you can, because when you give something up, you can't get it back. It's done. So the more equity you give up early, the less you have to give up later. And the earlier you give it up, the lower the valuation is, right? Because you don't have as much behind it. So, people are amazed that if they just hit this one milestone, if they just get this one contract, if they get this one proof of concept or patent, or there's so many things they can get that just bumps their valuation up from here to here. It could be as little as, if we can just wait another 4 weeks to get this thing signed, we're going to go from $1 million to $2 million in valuation. And if we need 50,000, we're going from giving up 5% of the company to 2.5% of the company. And this goes back to your planning. So at the very beginning, I talked about leaping into entrepreneurism and how, kind of think out what that first year is like, the first 6 months, first 3 months, first, 1 month, and what you have to do. And in that process, also think about what are the milestones you're going to hit throughout that year, those 6 months, those first 3 months. And each milestone, how big is that to the company? How much value does it add? And then maybe when you think that, you go back and start thinking, okay, what is the most important? What's the order of action items that we should take? And then you might change your plan around. But you're going to be thinking, okay, if I can do this much value is added to the company, then this much, bump up in the company's value, this much less equity I have to give, this much I can hold on to, it'll be this much easier to attract new employees. Nothing excites people like momentum, movement. What I mean by that is, if you just have an idea, it's hard to sell it to people. It's hard to say, listen, I have this idea for a helicopter that will work in Mars. And this is actually, from my understanding, there actually is a helicopter now that they're sending to Mars. But if you heard that idea just at a pitch, you'd probably go, that's crazy. Will that happen? Who knows? But here, let me change this just a little bit. Okay. But then, I guess this person raised like $500 million or something over a span of many years. If later on this person came to you and said, okay, we've raised 50 million and now we have a basic design and prototype, now you're excited. It went from maybe before this guy's a dreamer, he has no idea what he's doing, to, oh my God, they got all this money, they got this momentum. I'm interested in working for this person. I'm interested in partnering with this person. I'm interested in being on this team. So, same with your company. As you move along, people are going to get more excited. Investors are going to start coming to you going, wow, I see all this progress you've done since the last time we talked, 3 months ago, 6 months ago. I'm excited for you guys now. I'm excited what you're doing. People that maybe before were working at a friend's company or someone you knew that said, hey, this is just an idea. I'm not sure if it's going to actually go into something. They see you starting to get customers. They see you grow. They go, hey, if you ever need help, let me know. Hey, if you need a new if you're hiring an engineer, if you're hiring a UX designer, here's my resume. Hey, they'll start coming to you. Momentum breeds excitement. Excitement breeds opportunity. It's addictive. That's when you get these pushes for your company. And with this push, momentum, value goes up. More opportunities arise. You have to give up less equity. It's just if you can push off giving equity as long as possible, like I said, you'll have more of it. You'll have more control. You won't have to have as big of an exit for you to get paid. And what I mean by that is, if you have 100% of a company and you sell it for 10 million, great, you got 10 million. If you have 10% of a company you sell for 100 million, you have 10 million. That one you had 100% of the company, you had full control. The other you had bosses because of the investors. Yash, what do you want to say?
Yeah, hi, Son. So we are getting so many, you have put some great insights over there, and we are getting so many questions here in the comment section related to the COVID-19 situation, like how COVID is actually affecting the startups, and is it a good opportunity for the startups and the founders to start their own business and something. So it would be great if you can put some insights according to the American market. So what's happening over there due to the COVID-19 situations and all in the Bay Area?
Mm. So right now with COVID, I mean, I mentioned a little bit before. There's a there's a lot of investors waiting to see what happens, and they're looking to see opportunity to invest in companies at a better valuation for them, which would be a lower valuation for the company itself. But there's also a lot of money being pushed into sectors that they think are going to be very popular with the change of how business is done. Med tech, telehealth, fintech, um, online education. I'm constantly these last few months hearing investors email me, are there any ed tech companies that you know of? Are there any there's a lot, robotic process automation companies. Are there any there's a lot of things people are saying, we're interested in these now because we feel that they are the opportunity post COVID, just because they see how the world's changing. Now, a lot of things here have changed. Our accelerator programs that used to be in person either have stopped or they're moving them online. Incubators, the bulk of incubators here are closed. Either that or your key card will still work to get in, but they're empty. Pitch events, most of the pitch events have gone online. Investor meetings have gone online. And actually, it's kind of funny. One investor I talked to, Edith, who was on the Invest in Hong Kong panel, she actually said right now she's meeting more startups than ever before because her time is more efficient. She has, this 30-minute block, then this one, then this one, this one. Whereas before, she would drive here, drive there. And I'm not sure if anyone here has been to Silicon Valley, but the traffic is horrible. Going from San Francisco to San Jose during rush hour could be 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Imagine getting rid of all this driving in your day, how many more meetings you can have, how many more people you can meet. So, the VCs are talking, the investors are talking. Some of them are holding off on certain areas to invest. Others are way more excited and pouring more money in. The ones that I've talked to that are nervous are the ones that haven't. If you've raised all the money, all your capital to invest, and you're holding on to it, your investment thesis says we will invest this amount of money in this amount of time. So maybe it's, till 2022, they have to invest in 20 companies, or 2021, they have to invest in 20 companies. They have a certain amount of time they have to invest this money. The VCs, private equity groups, them. The angel says, okay, I have this much money of my savings allocated to invest in. So maybe it's 10% of my net worth I'm going to use to invest in startups. Well, if the market goes down, that percentage decreases. If the market goes up, or if there are other investments, sorry, I shouldn't say market. If there are other investments go up, then that 10% gets bigger. If there are other investments go down, that 10% gets smaller. So some of these angel investors are going, listen, the amount of money I've allocated over the next 2 years to invest for my portfolio has decreased. So the number of investments I'm going to do are either going to go down, or the valuation of these companies, I have to wait for them to go down to match it. So there is that waiting game. Both sides are playing it. Startups, Oh, hi, Shawn. Can you please give any insight about social entrepreneurship, how to make profit as well as making a change? Uh, there's a lot. Okay, how do I say? Investors want a return. Um, and yes, they might say, they want to do good, they want to help people, but they want a return. And they also know that they can get certain tax benefits in that by certain investments. There's a lot of nonprofits in that allocate every year a certain amount of money to go to certain causes. In opportunities, it's also opportunities to raise capital, raise funding for certain areas. It all comes, not all comes, but some people, I've seen a lot of pitches where people want to do social good, they want to help, but they don't have the business model, they don't have the business plan figured out. They go, listen, I want to help this group of people, or I want to solve this problem. But then when you go to them and you go, okay, great, I'm listening. Tell me about the unit economics. Tell me about how much the solution costs, how many people it will help, how long it will last for. Okay, once this initial money is going to be used, how much do you need to continue the program, maintain it, everything? They haven't really figured it all out. They just know they want to do good, which is great. But it doesn't. It's. You still have to have a business. There still has to be the demand from the market. There still has to be something that keeps it alive, sustains it. The beauty is when you can actually match everything together, where it's okay, our product or our service is solving this problem that's helping people, and then it grows and thrives. And just in my mind, any company that that people want is in some way, doing social good. It's helping people, or they wouldn't want the product. Now, you could argue, what about helping this group, helping that group? But there has to be the demand for what they want to do. There has to. It's a difficult question, to be honest, and it can be interpreted in so many different ways. But I guess the first thing is to go out, build your network that wants to work in that community, or help that group of people. And maybe you have to look more global to build that network, meet those connections. But once you have other like-minded people that want to help, want to work in that area, opportunities can arise. You should lower it down. Okay, wait, hold on. Hopefully that's better. I had one comment. I think it's just the lighting here. I got the saturation. So sorry, the webcam's not working. I'm using the computer cam. So Akshit, hopefully this is okay. It's a good idea to start. I did just after. Is it a good idea to start an idea just after student life without working somewhere? Okay, so I'm guessing it's, should I just do a startup straight out of college or straight out of university? Okay, there's positives and negatives with this. Positive, you have a ton of energy, you have a ton of excitement, you're probably not married, you probably don't have kids, so you don't have all these other responsibilities, these other commitments that could add stress to your life. You can focus on the company. The disadvantage is the lack of experience and probably the network. The reason I say the network is your network can give you advice, can give you guidance. I mean, that's why people get mentors. That's why people get advisors for their company. Your advisors for your company aren't just people that look good on a pitch deck. It's not, okay, here are these 5 people. Look, they have important titles. It's these people have experience, can guide you and give you advice to help you succeed, to give you that a better chance of getting to that end goal. And these people are involved in the business. So, I mean, you can leverage incubators, you can leverage accelerators. There's, entrepreneur networks that have already helped startups grow. And some of this, I mean, if you're fresh out of college, you're probably not aware of, what type of lawyers you should work with. I mean, there's different types of lawyers for your patents, for your articles of incorporation, for your other legal docs. Which lawyers do you go to? Who's had experience working with startups? Who will defer payments until you raise your next round or your first round? And with that network, they can say, okay, this is the lawyer you need. This is some terms or some fees you should expect. Talk to this person. Instead of you spending months doing research, asking all these people, it's there for you because you have this network. Tax laws. For example, there's a lot of companies here that same situation. There are a couple of engineers from Stanford, UC Berkeley, start a company, raise some money. Then you talk to them, go, are you getting tax credits for the salaries? And this is the U.S., Silicon Valley. I'm not sure in India. Are you taking advantage of tax credits for taxes, on the salary you pay engineers? And they always say, I have no idea what you're talking about. You go, well, the U.S. government and Canada and a lot of countries, your salary that you pay engineers, a percentage of that can be used for tax credits, so you can save on taxes each year. Now, that may not sound like much, but I've seen companies that get, save $200,000, $300,000 based on just finding out that they could get tax credit because of all the engineers that they've hired over the last year. And it's just having someone tell them, an advisor, a mentor, someone in their network going, hey, this is a possibility. And this goes for so many areas of a business. So if you want to, I mean, there's been successful companies of people that started right out of high school or halfway through college or after a PhD or in their 60s or 70s. And there's no specific time that's ideal, because at each stage of your life, you're going to have different responsibilities, whether it's grandkids, whether it's kids, whether it's taking care of a parent, and that's going to take time away from you. So there's no ideal time. Straight out of university, fine, but you will have to use more of your time to build that network. And hopefully your university has alumni that can help you, or an entrepreneur program that can help you, or there's accelerators that you can join that can help you, that can give you that network really quick. And hopefully you can get some good mentors and advisors that can coach you along when you have not only when you have problems, just coach you because you probably don't know possibilities out there. Your head's down, you're focused, and they're looking at it going, hey, Shawn, have you thought of doing this? Hey, Shawn, when I started my company, this is what I did. Hey, Shawn, here's someone you should talk to that might be able to write a check for you, or might be able to make an introduction to a potential client, a buyer for your product. Hey, Shawn, have you talked to, and having that network. So hopefully that answers your question. I mean, there's no ideal time, but whatever time you do start, know what you have, know what you don't have, ask questions on what you need to get, and write out that plan to move forward. Okay. Yash, do you want to filter the questions and just ask me? Maybe that would be easier than me reading them.
Yeah, that's exactly so. So I just I went to the many of the hackathons to talk about the students. Their right. So I found that some build really very techy kind of products, and they solve out very good real life problems, right? But they don't have actual business or their products to start a startup with that, right? So they build really good things. They have a good technology skills and everything they have, but they somewhere they lack into making a business plan, right? So what are your tips and tricks to create a business plan according to their product, something with a new technology or it's very specific?
Okay.
So it's a personal question, like it's not a comment section, but it's from my personal previous experience. So I would like to get answer from you about that as well.
Okay, Yash, it was very difficult to hear you right there. I think you said, um, what is your advice for a company that has a good technical product, but to build that into a business or to create a business plan for the product? Is that correct? Sorry, I was having trouble hearing you. I guess, Yash, if you'd like to type it in the private chat. But I'm going to assume that was the question. Like I said, once again, my apologies. I was having trouble hearing it, but I think it was, you have a good technology. How do you build that into a business? Okay, so um, I kind of this goes back to
Can you hear me properly?
it's coming in and out. So right now
Okay,
I
I will
can't.
write it in the private chat. You can continue. I will answer to that.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so Yash is going to write this question in the private chat. So hold on until then. Let's go back to some of the initial questions we were going to talk about today. Was uh, all about the global startup ecosystem. Something that I think is a great opportunity right now that people should take advantage of is most, not most, many major cities have programs to help entrepreneurs. So, for example, uh, Korea. If one of your co-founders is Korean, the Korean government will give you a certain amount of money. In China, I mean, like I said, I'm head of incubation for a global incubator chain. We have most of our operations in China. This light really does make my face look orange. So, yeah, sorry about that. Um, God, I'm just gonna turn that off. Hopefully that's not too bad. The saturation, sorry guys, I'm not sure really how to play around with this. This is the first time I've used StreamYard, and I don't want to take the time right now to go into the settings for the camera um, and and play around with it. I'd rather just use this time because I know it is limited. I think we have like 15 minutes left or whatever to answer questions. So I'd rather just use the time to focus on the questions. Um, yeah, so global opportunities right now for the startup ecosystem. I mean, there's so much opportunity with other cities, other countries, with them already having programs in place for companies to land, register, set up operations, and move forward. I mean, they want that company from overseas to land there. I mean, they'll help you with introductions. A lot of them will give you tax credit. A lot of them will give you a free office for whether it's 6 months, whether it's a year. Um, there's a lot of opportunities right now if one goes out and researches them to help them land, help them get funding, help them get opportunities overseas. I mean, Korea, China, Australia, a lot of countries in Europe, U.S. I mean, God, Silicon Valley alone, there's a ton of opportunities where incubators will give you free office space for a certain amount of time. They'll introduce you to their angel network of investors. They want to see you grow. Service providers will defer payments for the first 3 or 6 months, depending on if they believe in your company. Um, there's a lot of perks that are already set up for startups in overseas countries. Um, and actually, I'd really, later on after all this is said and done, I really would like to learn about all the perks and opportunities in India. I'm not as familiar with India as I am with most other countries. So, and actually, I guess this works if I hold my hand here, the camera focuses there, and that makes my face okay. I don't know. This is weird. So questions, Yash, thank you for typing the questions in the chat. I went to many of the hackathons previously, and students and developers build really good stuff, but they lack in creating a business plan. What are your tips for them? Great. Okay, so I'll say the story. There's this one person I know. Her professional career is winning hackathons. That's how she makes her living here in Silicon Valley. And she's flown around the world competing in hackathons. Like that's what she does. She makes hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in prize money. She gets free trips. I mean, it's amazing. How many companies has she actually started? 0. And what I mean by that is every few months she starts a new company. How many of those succeed? 0. And then she goes back to hackathons, and then she wins hackathons, and people go, oh my God, your technology is absolutely amazing. What you're doing is phenomenal. You should build a company. And then she starts a company and then fails, 0. And then she goes back, and that's just her. She's amazing at building technology. She cannot run a company. And everyone, I mean, the moment you start talking to her mind is wandering in all different directions. And I mean, that's a lot of people. They're really good at one thing, and you have to know what you're good at. Are you good at sales? Are you good at building product? Are you good at marketing? What's your key focus? What's your strength? And then you build your team around that. So if your key strength is building the technology, the first people you have to have on your team are, sales. You have to have someone that, I mean, honestly, you're probably not the CEO, you're the CTO. And that's a conversation you're going to have with yourself. What's your role in your company going to be? What are your strengths? And I've seen founders get in full-on arguments at investor meetings in front of investors going, I'm the CTO, this is the CEO. No, I'm the CEO. You're the CEO. What? They get in this debate. Their roles haven't been defined, and they need to be. If you're, God, this orange thing, now that it was in the comments, it's a killer. You gotta love it when one person says one thing and then it just kind of haunts you. Okay, we're going no light. All right. So, I mean, define your role. Define what your strengths are, and based on that, guys, I'm really sorry about the camera. Normally I have a webcam, but yeah, the hackathon thing, you might be able to build amazing technology, but that doesn't mean you're a CEO. It doesn't mean that you can run a company, build a company. You have to know your strengths. Are you good with people? Because the CEO's job, he's out there every day selling. He's out there every day raising capital. He's out there building the pipeline, working with the sales team, convincing people that they should work with your company. Yeah. But yeah, the technical person heads down building the product. Also, and this is going to be harsh, the person that builds the product probably is not going to be the CTO too long. Why do I say that? As your company grows, are you good with managing people? I mean, when you're managing 2 or 3 other people and you're the CTO, that's one thing. But if your company's, say 100 people and you're managing, quite a few engineers, you're no longer programming. You're no longer building the product. You're now, designing the next features, thinking bigger picture. Is that your strength? Are you good with people? So I mean, there's so many good ideas. God, that's the one thing they always say. It's not the idea, it's the execution. Because there's so many great ideas out there. Uh, but does the market want it? Will they pay for it? Does the team that have the idea, are they able to create a company out of it? Do they understand, you know, sales process? Do they understand, working with customers? Do they, I mean, even something like HR, human resources and the employee culture. Um, I mean, an idea here and a business aren't the same thing. And hopefully your idea can become a business. That's also why there's so much value on founders that this is their second or third company, because investors know they can take an idea and build it into a company. It just won't always stay an idea. I mean, it'll grow. That's why people are excited. They're like, okay, you've done this 2-3 times before. I have so much more confidence in you that you're going to be able to do this again. So, I mean, that's my thing with hackathons. Hackathons are amazing. You can get so much good engineer talent from hackathons. You can get so many good ideas. Take that product and create a business from it. You have to test in the market, see if the market likes it. You have to build your team around it. So it's a complete business. And I mean, also a thing with hackathons that I've seen arguments come up, who actually owns it? Sometimes in hackathons, they say if you build any product in this hackathon, the host of the hackathon actually own the IP. Other times, partners, I even remember there's a lawsuit once. There's the people that won, it was TechCrunch. TechCrunch Disrupt, their hackathon, their AR hackathon. Was it 2 years ago? 3 years ago? It was 3 years ago. The winners of it, amazing technology, absolutely amazing. People were like, "Oh my god, this is a game changer." The two people that partnered for it, that developed it, one didn't like the other. They just partnered for the hackathon because they thought they would win it if they worked together, which they did because they're both brilliant. But outside of the hackathon, they hated each other. And then they both wanted to form the company based on the technology. And instead of being able to work it out, one sued the other. And so there goes that. It's done. It's done. That's over. So be careful with, who owns the technology in that. Yash, okay. I guess we have time for maybe one or two more questions. I think that's right. Yash, let me know.
Hey, can you hear me, Shawn?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm facing some internet issues over here, so that's maybe in between, maybe I'll lag behind in that. So we are getting so many questions over here regarding, like, some of them, like, saying kudos to you for a wonderful session, and really kudos from my side as well for a wonderful session. Like, so is there is a question, what are the good qualities should a young student should have? Right, so it's a basic question, but it would be great if you can throw some 5 minutes of something on your journey, like what kind of entrepreneurs you have come across in your life journey and all. So there is a question like this one.
Okay. So
Here it
so
is. Just a
so
minute. Yeah.
so my understanding is, what qualities should an
Yeah.
entrepreneur have? Um, Great question. Great question. I'm glad you asked that. And everyone in the live chat, thank you. I'm seeing a lot of positive things, seeing a lot of, thank you for the wonderful session. Thank you, Shawn. Kudos. So thank you guys, because I mean, I'm glad I'm able to add value, and hopefully this information is helping you. Like I said, I host a podcast where I interview some of the biggest names in Silicon Valley, that if you subscribe and listen to, I know you're going to get a lot of information out of it. Also, we have not a lot, but we do have some opportunities with some of the speakers where they give free consulting for people that write a review on the podcast. So, for example, Brett Shernow, for his interview, anyone that wrote a review on iTunes or that, he gave a 30-minute consultation. And this guy's time is, you can't get it. I mean, he's helped companies raise over 650 million. He's helped with 7 billion in exits, and he gave his time. 4 people got half hour of his time. Crystal, I interviewed her. She's a venture capitalist. Same thing. Anyone that wrote a review for her episode, she was offering a free phone call. I mean, her first fund was with Peter Thiel. I mean, how much bigger can you get? So listen to the podcast, like, subscribe, look for an opportunity to connect with the guest. But let's go back to the question. So the skills that an entrepreneur should have: 1, grit. And what do I mean by grit? You're going to run into so many problems that if you don't have tenacity, if you don't have that willingness to move forward, you're just not going to make it. I mean, it's hard. It is hard. And that's why there's such a huge success if you make it, and that feeling of accomplishment, that because of the challenges you're going to face. Also, open-minded. Your idea is probably going to have to pivot several times. And if you're not open-minded, how are you going to take suggestions, take feedback? How are you going to take new ideas as things change, as what's happened on the outside changes? So being open-minded, always wanting to learn. I mean, always ask questions. In fact, that's the one thing when I started working really in Silicon Valley, when I was with Bay Angels as the investment director. At first, when I was going to those meetings, I mean, at first I was just volunteering my time because I wanted to learn and get the information from the members, which are these VCs, these high net worth individuals. They asked the best questions. Like the people that had the most money in the room, I mean, the people that manage, $100 million, $500 million funds, their questions, everyone would go silent after. They'd go, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even think, wow, like that's an amazing." And I realized the richest people are the most successful, both. They ask the best questions. I mean, they knew how to ask the founder something that actually changes the whole business model, something that could stop the business or increase revenue like that. And most of the time, the founders would say, "I've been doing pitches for 6 months and no one's asked me that question." So, the power to ask questions, be inquisitive, know what to ask, that's a huge trait. Another is, soft skills, people skills. If you're raising money, people have to like you. If people are buying your product, people have to like you. If people are working for your company and you're not paying them above market rate salaries, people have to like you. You have to build this culture. You have to be able to work with all types of people. And I mean, my undergraduate was mechanical engineering. I did mechanical engineering at University of California, San Diego. Great school. Working with engineers is not the same as working with marketers. It's not the same as working with the sales team. It's not the same as working with investors. Everyone looks at things differently. Everyone has a different perception of the world. And if you're one of the early people on the team, you have to be able to work with all these different types of people. I mean, you may not understand or connect as well with some as with others, but I mean, when you're the CEO or you're the CFO, CTO, CCM, when you're, that C title, you're working with all parties and you have to be able to communicate and work together. So, soft skills such as communication, leadership, those are all very important. And I mean, the willingness to grow as a person. No one goes into a business with everything. You might have more than others, but if you have grit, if you'll keep going, if you ask questions, if you are able to work with people or improve those skills or find people that are good with working with people that you can partner with, you keep growing and you have, maybe your first company doesn't make it, maybe it's your second or third, but you're going to get so much further in life as long as you keep growing yourself, developing, and always wanting more. So I guess hopefully that helps. Oh, thanks. That's a cool compliment. Bro, a certificate isn't worthy. Your knowledge is worth. Thank you. I like that. Um, I don't know what getting FISROs. Not sure what that means. Oh, certificate is also worthy, bro. Okay, so I'm not sure about the certificate. Yaz is. I didn't even know that there was a certificate for any of this. I just thought I was coming in to help you guys out. So Yash will know more about that. Um, what's particularly special about Silicon Valley? Yash, is there time for one more question, or are we done, or what's your thoughts? Yash, time for one more, or done, or yes, no? Uh, okay. I guess I'll just answer one more question. It says, what is particular specialty of Silicon Valley? So, um, the thing about Silicon Valley, there's actually quite there's many things here that you can't find anywhere in the world, and a lot, and I'd say a few of them are one, experience, and the amount of experience. I mean, it's very common here to meet people that have had 2, 3 exits, that have, invested in these unicorn companies, or met these founders, or that. I mean, just the experience here. It's can't find it in these new developing startup ecosystems. Maybe, I mean, if the ecosystem's 5, 10 years old, maybe a few people that have had one exit. Well, here in Silicon Valley, when it's 40 years old, you meet people that's their entire career, was building a company, selling it, building a company, selling it, where they had 3 companies that failed, 2 companies that they sold, and 1 company that they're working on now. I mean, that's very common. And just that experience of people you can talk to and go, what'd you do in this situation? What'd you do in that? It's very different. You could find a few people that have this experience, but in one area having that many, I don't think there's another place in the world in the startup ecosystem. Now, if you're talking about banking, New York, or Shanghai, or there's other areas, or international trade, there's other areas that have that experience. But when it comes to startups, Silicon Valley has that, and then with that comes all the resources one needs for a startup. The lawyers that have had experience working with only startups for 40 years, the accountants that have experience working with startups for 40 years. All these people working with a startup and working with an established company are not the same thing. And it's amazing in Silicon Valley that you have these people that their full career, all they've done is work with companies that have 2 people and they grow them to 100. Or I specifically work with companies from 100 to 500 people, or 500 to, you have all the steps of a company's growth with people in all sectors, all services that specialize and focus on that with all this experience. It's incredible. And then, access to capital, access to other things. But the knowledge and experience and resources that are here in such a small area is what's Silicon Valley is all about, and the openness to fail and try again. Um, I mean, yeah, check out my podcast. Yeah, Yash, how are we with time? But also, the world is getting smaller, and all these
Yeah,
opportunities
can you hear me?
are growing everywhere. So think of that. I mean, a lot of Y Combinator, all these places are opening up incubators, accelerators in India. There's so much global opportunity right now, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. And with COVID and that and everything going online, there's so much more opportunity for overseas startups getting access to all of this here, and governments that putting in investment in growing these opportunities everywhere as well. So it's very exciting. It's very exciting. Yash, sorry to cut you off there.
Hello, can you hear me, Shawn?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, it sounds good. So we will not take your too much time. I know you are in a Silicon Valley, and I'm thankful to you. You are at early 6 o'clock in morning. You are taking this session, right? So, before we end this session,
Huh? Sorry, Yash, can't hear you. There was one question from VJ. Is there a way, if anyone's following you like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram? Yes. All my social media is Shawn Flynn SV, ShawnFlynn SV. So that's all my social media, my Twitter, my Facebook. My LinkedIn is just my name, Shawn Flynn. You could find me there. Um, but like I said, the podcast, the Silicon Valley podcast, subscribe. The people I interview, the amount of information they share is absolutely amazing. Share it with your whole network. And my LinkedIn and that I'm semi-active on, but to be honest, I get so many emails, so many messages every day that it's really hard for me to actually connect with people. So my apologies if anyone messaged me directly, if I don't get back to them or it takes a few days. But follow me on Twitter and YouTube and that. YouTube, I'm coming out with some videos next month. Up till now, it's just been podcast videos I post there. But yeah, Shawn Flynn SV and the podcast, the Silicon Valley Podcast.com. So yeah. And thank you guys. This has been a lot of fun. I look forward to the opportunity of possibly doing this again in the future. And yeah, good luck on all your journeys. When your company gets to that later stage, please let me know. I do work at an investment bank as well, and I have good contacts with a lot of investors. But they mostly focus on later stage if you're raising 10 million and up. But reach out, and I wish everyone the best of luck. Good luck. Yash,
thank you
any
so
closing
much
remarks?
for your grateful words. I hope you can hear me now.
Yeah, I can hear
Yeah,
you.
exactly. For sure, Sean. I hope you can hear me. Oh, that's great. That's great. So, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm really grateful to you for your grateful session, for taking this early in the morning at 6 o'clock, and while being in Silicon Valley. And that's really nice of you that you, on just a short notice, you pick ready for this session and shared your knowledge and your journey with our community members. That's really great of you, Sean. So now looking forward to for more in upcoming time on more new topics apart from the like after COVID-19 startups and all these things for sure. So today we are in this session over here. So before we end the session, I'm thankful to all audience who were with us during the whole session, who asked a lot of questions, who asked lot of great questions, and best question I found like many of the people are like very beautiful question was there, like very question like from Darshani, from Abul Kabir, and from some people were there as well, like Sudhanshu Bhaskar was there. Like there were several people who asked really questions. I'm thankful to them. So thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you, Sean, for joining us. It's me, Yash Sharma, community manager at Zubi.io. We are signing off. Thank you so much. Looking forward to have more sessions in future.
All
Thank
right.
you, guys.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Sean.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.